the Overman Warrior Podcast.
Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. I always hope that these new hires work out, and we're talking about the Lakota school system, northern suburb of Cincinnati. School district that is where I live, and I cover the news on it because it's in my neighborhood. Every school district has similar problems. You can almost carbon copy a lot of these issues to just about every district in the United States. So it's interesting to talk about your own in ways that maybe other people might learn something from. So I'm always interested in hoping that they hire the right somebody to do something that's important and makes these public schools work. I am always skeptical. I think the public education system is flawed fundamentally. To say that I have a lot of anger at the way the education system has been formulated over time, over many decades, from its inception essentially, would be an understatement. I don't think that education is paramount importance to any kind of human culture, but the way we've come up with it in the United States, and probably the approach that civilization has had towards it in any country has been wrong. Anything that's kind of getting away from family teaching of the young people, and then society to back up what the family teaches probably should be more of an emphasis, instead of removing the child from the family and teaching in a social order, and to find your pecking order within that culture has probably been devastating for everything that it means to be a human being. Well, with that said, we hope that these education attempts have some sort of merit to them, and I want to be wrong. Believe me, I want to. I give these efforts a chance, and I'd love for someone to prove me wrong, but they never do. And that's certainly the case for Dr. Ashley Whiteley at Lakota Schools. She was brought in to cover the spot that was left vacant from the previous guy, who had really crazy sexual lifestyles that got out in the public, ended up under police interviews, and that spelled doom for him. He was being groomed to be the poster boy for all things progressive and progressive society, and as a superintendent of a big school system in Ohio, he was being paraded around to be like the example everybody was supposed to follow. And then you found out that he had this crazy sexual lifestyle that he admitted to in police documents, and it was really ugly. So on the back of that, Dr. Ashley Whiteley was the new hire that they brought in to cover him because he had to resign. And I went to a few meetings. I don't go to too many of them these days just because I see it as a pointless exercise, but I'm interested. I do support when school board candidates want to go get involved, because that's ultimately how you're supposed to manage it. We have a new school board member, Ben Wynn, that is doing a great job, I think, as a school board member. And talking to him here and there, it's not all doom and gloom as far as his reporting to people who's on the school board. And there are people that I just don't like on the school board, haven't liked for years, or haven't liked that they wanted to be, and now they're there. I think they're just garbage people, and I don't have any hope for him. And he's given me a report that there's things that he can work with them on. So that's encouraging. Anytime you get people that can actually make something happen, it's good. So it's not all doom and gloom. But I had high hopes for Dr. Ashley Whiteley, and I wanted her to come in and maybe get her arms around things and make things better. But they went up with a big levy to try and get some money for facilities. They have an operation levy coming up that they want to do. They have a lot of school funding shortfalls that are inevitable. And I've been watching to see how they handle it, and they lost their latest initiative badly. It wasn't even close. And I'm sure they thought, well, we're going to come at them with a big one, and then we'll see how the public reacts, and then we'll come at them with a little one and hopefully pass that one. So it's kind of a shell game that they play, and I kind of hope that wouldn't be the case, but that's turned out to be how it goes, because she was essentially brought in to pass school levies and to sell further incursions against property tax to the public. And I'd hope that they listed her on the website as a superintendent / CEO. And when I think of a CEO, I think of someone who can espouse vision, but also make sure you can get control of the operating budget. And that's not what's going on at Lakota. It's just essentially, we're going to continue to pay escalating wages to an out of control workforce. We're going to have too many administrators on staff. We're going to have administrators for administrators, and then we're going to throw an extra few $1 million on the budget because we have too many. We're not going to scale back. We're not going to adjust to changing marketplace conditions. We're not going to try to make a more competitive environment. We're not going to embrace the fact that the competitive model of education is coming into fashion, and that vision should come from a CEO position. Now, I've argued for years. I remember the famous I-Team report that I was involved in that showed that a lot of these superintendents were making more than the governor of Ohio or in other places. They were grossly out of proportion with salary structure of comparable positions. Lakota being one of the large employers of the state, certainly of the region of Butler County, the decisions that a leader would make are not what you'd find in a typical private industry. And that's where they are all playing house. And they continue to do so. They continue to put these very progressive people in these positions. And they have visions of spending lots of money. That's why they put them in the positions. And then the goal is to go out and extract from the community these huge tax increases to pay for it all. And that scam worked for a long time until it didn't. And now people are tired of it. Now they've grown weary of the efforts. And then that comes down to who brings value to the community more. The people who say no to the taxes are the people who are promoting more taxes. In this case, they bring in people like Ashley Wheatley. And I'm talking about her because I'm disappointed. I had hopes that she would come in and start getting Lakota schools, the school district in my community, aim for a more competitive. We're going to have open enrollment and lure other kids from other school districts to come to Lakota. We're going to have to bring the price per pupil of education down and still excel and use that competitive model to recruit people to want to come to Lakota schools when you detach funding from the zip code. That's what I wanted. And I listened to her at a couple of these school board meetings. She sounds kind of like she's doing the typical, the typical convention outreach that you hear of a lot of education promotions utter. It's the same old, and you hope that maybe it's just the jitters of being new. But as she's now settled into the role, she's turned out to be exactly what we worried about. And that's somebody who really doesn't have any CEO qualifications. She just has I'm going to go out and cheerlead more spending and trying to convince the public to increase their taxes to pay for it. And I'm trying to tell everybody that is a model that's coming to an end. And the value used to be that the school system, as a free babysitting service, would give parents someplace nice to drop their kids off. And if they got to college and maybe could get a decent job, everybody could pat themselves on the back and say, hey, we did something good. all that money we spent was worth something. But what you find now, well into it, is the teacher unions are out of control. They're teaching kids all the wrong things. They charge too much money for it, and then they go out and hire people like Dr. Ashley Whiteley for Lakota schools to come out and cheerlead tax initiatives. So they didn't learn anything from the last levy attempt. They still have shortfalls projected because they give away too much money. They have too much staff. They're doing all the wrong things. They're not running it correctly. They have a huge budget, and they want more budget because they don't know how to say no to themselves. And they don't know how to control their staffing. And they certainly don't know how to be competitive and try and wean the school off the state funding model that is collapsing as we speak. Not going to continue on. I've talked a lot about the evolution of property taxes and how they're going to go away because people have decided they don't want to fund the level of government that has been given to them over decades and decades. And we've hit that stone wall. And people like Lakota certainly hasn't learned, and they hired Ashley Whiteley to essentially try to keep it going for as long as possible, and they're just planning to come back and get more levies rather than adjusting to the changing marketplace. They're still thinking tax when the world's going in a different direction. And they still want to sell that their value to the community is a good school when it's turning out that the value of a good community is having a residential base that fights back against taxes, keeps taxes low, and keeps all these crazy unionized radicals in check and without giving them a whole lot extra money. And the value to the community is in keeping the taxes low, not in more government services. And that model is falling apart in the Democrat playbook at every level. And Lakota certainly hasn't done anything to learn any lessons. They certainly didn't put their finger to the wind and listen to what the community told them in the last election. So they're going to spend a lot of time and effort cheerleading on another levy attempt, for which they hope that residents eventually will say uncle and give in, because that's been the playbook for 4 or 5 decades now, where Economic Times gave people the illusion that they could throw their money at these public schools and everything would come out great, but that's not been the case. Kids haven't come out very smart. We've seen a lot of progressive education and trying to teach kids to go away from their parents and adopt some Democrat platform, because Democrats are looking to recruit young members, and they're trying to get kids to divorce their parents essentially to become it and to serve some social context instead of what they learned in the family home. And then they've charged a lot of money for it. And then you get people like Ashley Whiteley, who goes out there and cheerleads this stuff on, doesn't listen to the community. They were hired not to be a CEO, but to be essentially a convention sales pitch, to go to the community and say, hey, increase taxes, this is what we'll give you for it, nice new buildings, and we'll put your kids' art on the walls, and you can visit it every so often and see what you paid for. Meanwhile, we're going to teach kids to be in transgender bathrooms and use transgender bathrooms and change their pronouns and find ways to work against Trump. And that's the game plan, and that's why it's a disgusting enterprise and why it's failing. And they haven't adopted the changing marketplace. And it's turned out that Ashley Whiteley at Lakota schools is no different than all the other ones they've tried to bring in, and I hope that wouldn't be the case. I would love to be wrong, but nobody seems to be able to prove me wrong. Why is that? So we'll see how it goes, but they're getting ready to do another levy, and we'll go defeat that one too, and keep defeating them until something changes. But the most valuable aspect that everybody has learned of community management has been to have a resistance movement that fights against these levies instead of passing them and raising taxes so that it really hurts your community growth, because people are taxed too much. Keep the taxes low, keep everybody on their heels with management that the school board should be doing, but they don't. So we have to have anti-levy organizations to do the work that we elect people to do, but they never seem to be able to do it because they hire people like Ashley Whiteley, and they let the lawyers run the schools and all the finance people, and they're top heavy on administrators, and they expect to pay millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer money to all these administrators who have cushy jobs that they only work at for 7 or 8 months out of the year and take vacations all summer, and with excessively high incomes that they don't deserve. They're not worth it. They're not doing the job the way the job is being paid to get out of them. They're essentially cheerleaders for more taxes, and that's not good enough. Anyway, if you're chopping here, share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you ever read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.
Thank you for listening.